I'm going to do a little mini wedding cake series for you. We're going to start with filling and crumb coating because I've already baked the cakes. That part's not going to be included, but I am going to show you how to fill them, how to crumb coat them, and then the second video will be of doweling and frosting and a little bit of decoration. And then the third video is my favorite. That's actually getting the cakes to the venue safely. So that's going to be fun. I can't wait for that one. And I'll show you how to box up the cakes, how to get them in the car safely, how to get them there and set them up and all that stuff. So you don't have to worry. I mean, it is a little stressful no matter what. I think it's really important to remember that this is a really, really special cake and you can't replace this cake. You can't duplicate it. So you do have to be extra careful. And you should be a little worried that you're gonna drop it. You know, you have to really put an extra effort into being careful. Be really, really careful. You can't be too careful with a wedding cake. So having said that, I hope you enjoy the videos and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for being here and please continue letting me know what you want to see. It was really helpful that you guys told me that you wanted to see this and I'm really excited about these videos. All right, thanks again. Start with your cardboard round. And I've got my cakes here and they are frozen. So that's number one. I start with frozen or very cold cakes. Now I baked these yesterday and I just stuck them in the fridge till they cooled down enough to wrap them, and then I stuck them in the freezer just for overnight. So they're not like super solid, but they're very nice and chilled. And the reason I do that is because they're easier to work with. You can just pick them up. And you can also, when you put the chocolate mousse, which in this case is very kind of soft, it will harden quickly, so it'll set the whole cake. Now you do have to work a little faster when the cakes are cold because you don't want things to set too quickly. And then also remember that you want to start with sticky side down so that it sticks to the cardboard. You should have a sticky side to your cake. That would be the top of the cake. Sorry about all that noise. Then you just center that onto your cardboard round. And this is your bottom layer. Next, take your buttercream, which you will have in a pastry bag, and pipe a nice thick dam. So what this does, and now actually with the mousse, you don't really have to do the dam because once the mousse sets, it's very firm. But just for illustration purposes, you normally would make a dam. Like let's say you were doing a whipped cream with strawberries or a lemon curd filling or something that's going to be a little on the slippery side and it look kind of loose, then you definitely want to make your dam. And what that does, besides holding the filling in, is it also acts as a glue. So when you put the top layer on and that hardens, it will become like a glue, holding the layers together. So there I have my dam. I've got a giant batch of chocolate mousse. And you want to use this pretty quickly too because it sets, it's got butter in it and it sets up fairly quickly. I do a very thick layer. I usually for wedding cakes do 2-layer cake with a filling. Occasionally I'll do a 3, it depends on the cake. And then just get that evened out a little bit. Then we're just going to put the top layer right on there. You can go either way with this. You can do the sticky side down or up, depending on what your layer looks like. Take a good look at your layer and you know, like in this case, it's a little higher on this side, a little lower on this side. So what I usually do is I look for a similar situation on the lower layer. So this is a little thinner over here. I'm going to put the thicker part here. And then just press gently down. Now that one I would put aside, and I would move on to the next. So this cake is going to be a 3-tiered cake with a 14, a 10, and a 6. And then an extra cake on the side. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll suggest to the bride, instead of a 4-tier cake, to go with a 3-tier and a cake on the side. They could save a little bit of money that way. It's so much easier to deliver. Although I've delivered many 4-tier cakes, it's not that much of a big deal, but it's just a little easier with a 3-tier. Now in this case, I'm going to put a little piece of, what do you call this, shelf liner, because it's a little sticky and it kind of holds the cake in place, because this cake is not that heavy. And this is my butter cake with orange, and it's really goes really nicely with the chocolate mousse. So we're going to go ahead and repeat that whole thing. And the chocolate mousse I did ×4. If you see the recipe, I do have it on YouTube and on my website. So I do use a convection oven, and it does tend to kind of blow the cake a little bit. So you can see the cake is a little higher on one side, and that happens pretty much every time I bake. But it works out because you can always, like I said with the last layer or the last tier, you can find the opposite side, the lower end of this one, and put the higher end of the other cake. Or you can trim your cakes down if you have to. So in this case, I am going to actually put the sticky side up, which I did with the bottom tier too. Press. Okay, now once I put the crumb coat on here, it'll fill in all the gaps. So I'm going to put that one aside and go right to the top tier. Now the top tier, sometimes I will do a 3-layer, which I'm going to do today, because I like the way it looks when the top tier is taller versus shorter, and even taller than the other 2 tiers. So I've got 3 of these, which I actually might trim down a little bit because you can see they're kind of rounded, and I don't want that. I want them to be flat. So I'm going to make these a little thinner. Be really careful when you're doing this. I have a really, really sharp knife. And when they're frozen like this, it's actually kind of dangerous. So I'm going to let them sit for a little bit. I'll be back. So for the 6-inch tier, again, I put the sticky stuff down, the shelf liner. And I trimmed my cakes a little bit. And checked to make sure they're nice and even and straight. And then, since I like how straight it is, I want to make sure to put a little notch in there. You can do this with all the tiers. I didn't feel I needed to with the other two. And that way you'll know like which side goes where. So we're going to start with same exact thing you're going to do. Actually, yeah. Go ahead and put your dam on there. You also want to be careful not to overfill, which I have a tendency to want to do, because you don't want to take any chances of the filling popping out the side, which wouldn't really happen with chocolate mousse. Okay. That's too much. And the bride and groom will eat this most likely a year from now. And from what I've heard from all of my brides, the cake is still very delicious a year in the freezer. Okay, that's good. I have some chocolate mousse left over, so when that happens, I will actually use it to fill in here on the sides, because it adds some extra flavor. And it works beautifully as a crumb coat as well. It's important when you're doing wedding cakes to take a moment to clean up, reorganize before going on to like step number 2 or 3, and just regroup, because it can be quite stressful if you let it get really messy and then you start like losing things and not being able to to deal. So I'm going to take a little break right now. I'm going to clean up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one as is. It's got chocolate mousse on it as a crumb coat, and I'm going to put that aside. The cakes are still sitting out as I'm doing this, so I haven't put them back in the fridge yet. And I'm going to go ahead and crumb coat the next tier. I use Italian meringue buttercream almost exclusively now, and if it sometimes ends up a little bit airy and kind of like it doesn't want to incorporate and be smooth, I just stick it in the microwave. And that's what I did with this. I put it in the microwave for, I think it was 20 seconds. So 10 seconds and then 10 seconds. You might need to do more. And then just get some of those air bubbles out with your spatula. Now you just need a little bit of a coat here. You don't need a big, huge amount. Just enough to seal in the crumbs. This part goes pretty quick. You don't really have to worry too much about making it look good. One thing to remember when you're doing the crumb coat though is to have a separate bowl or something that you can scrape off the excess. Actually, I'm going to use this. So if you have crumbs on your spatula, you don't want to put it back into the bowl with your fresh buttercream. Or you can just use a spatula and kind of put some on there. There's really no set rules. I mean, some people do their frosting up and down like this. Some people use a piping bag. This is just the way I've always done it. And just smooth that out. Doesn't even have to be even that smooth. Take down the edges. And that's it. Okay, put this one aside. Now at this point, you can either put them in the fridge, you can cover them or not cover them, however you want to do it. The buttercream will pretty much keep it fresh. I probably would want to cover this because there's some exposure right there. Cover it with plastic, put it in the fridge, or you can just go right ahead and frost your cakes now and have them already frosted. Stick them in the fridge, and then the following day, put them all together. I hope that wasn't too confusing. On to my third tier. All right, that's a problem. So this is not sticking. So what I'm gonna do is just put a little bit of buttercream on there. You see, I didn't put the sticky side down on this cake. Well, now it will stick. It'll get hard in the fridge and stick to the cardboard. Okay, we are done. We're done with the filling, the crumb coating, and I'm going to put the cakes in the fridge. So the next video, stay tuned because I'm going to be doing the frosting and the doweling of the cakes.